All right, man, peace. So now this is going to be part 2 in regards to the series on the NBA playoffs preview. This is going to feature the Philadelphia 76ers versus Miami Heat series and the Boston Celtics versus the Milwaukee Bucks series. So, of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Simmons is clearly and by far the best rookie this year.
Ben Simmons has got it. Boom, jam there. Ben Simmons and the Sixers.
Ben Simmons is a superstar and making the second coming of LeBron James.
I feel strong.
I'm very interested to see how the Miami Heat are going to try to guard Ben Simmons, because I guarantee you that he will not face any tougher defense throughout the Eastern Conference in the playoffs than he'll face from the Miami Heat in regards to their scheme and their effort. So however well he does against them will determine how well he does in subsequent series, assuming that they get past the Miami Heat.
I feel strongly that he is the rookie of the year.
I think faith for sure. 100%.
Won 16 straight, but the big question is, when will injured center Joel Embiid return? We know he's out for game 1. Stephen A., you spent 18 years in Philly. You know this city well, this team. Your pick to win it is who, my friend?
76ers. I'm picking this series to go 7 games.
I agree with you, Stephen A. Smith. I believe that this series will go 7 games, especially if Joel Embiid cannot come back until around game 4 or 5. I believe that by the time Joel comes back, the series will most likely be 2-2. Please understand that I believe they split the regular season series 2-2 with Joel Embiid. Now, I'm not quite sure if he missed the games that were played. I know that he and Whiteside had a rather serious back and forth in the preseason that kind of trickled over into the regular season. But if I remember correctly, they split the regular season series 2-2. And I'm sure that Embiid played in at least 2 or 3 of those games, if not all 4. Once again, I expect the defense and the effort that Miami brings to this series to be the best that Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid will face for the entire playoffs in the Eastern Conference. So it will be a great early test for them. And he better watch out for that Kelly Olynyk. Everyone on Philadelphia better watch out for Kelly Olynyk, a.k.a. the shoulder snatcher.
Because I think the experience of Dwayne Wade, along with the Rough Riders that the Miami Heat have, can stretch this series a bit longer. No question about it. Plus, you're missing Joel Embiid for Game 1, so it wouldn't surprise me at all if Miami won Game 1. But in the end, the Sixers' talent, their length, and more importantly than anything else, their perimeter shooting will rule the day. Miami doesn't have shooters like this. The J.J. Redicks, the Bellinellis of the world, the Covingtons of the world, Markelle Fultz coming off the bench.
One of the things that I love about the Philadelphia 76ers so much is that the metrics that matter, they excel at. Rebounding, defense, they're excellent in those areas. They just need experience.
Capable of hitting outside shots, but scoring by getting to the basket. They've got about 4 or 5 dudes that can from beyond the arc. And I think ultimately that will be what propels Philadelphia over Miami. But I think it'll take 7 games because Miami can defend, they can get Rough Riders, they can make it a little bit uglier, and the Sixers are still inexperienced.
It'll also be very interesting to see how well Dwayne Wade performs. We all know that Dwayne is a player who does not shy away from the spotlight. He certainly does not fold up in clutch situations. So I expect him to make his presence known in certain games and in particular moments, especially in the games in Philadelphia.
From beyond the arc. And I think ultimately that will be what propels Philadelphia over Miami. But I think it'll take 7 games because Miami can defend, they can get Rough Riders, they can make it a little bit uglier, and the Sixers are still inexperienced. If they were experienced, I'd say 5. But because they're inexperienced, I think it's going to take 7.
I pretty much agree with you, but to me, the determining factor is going to be how soon Embiid can come back. The physicality and the experience of Miami will certainly get them at least 1 game. But I think that the overwhelming factor will be how soon can Embiid come back, because I think that Miami's going to bring a level of intensity, especially on defense, that's going to make Philadelphia uncomfortable, especially early. Fortunately for them, they're going to start the series out in Philly. But they better be very careful that they don't allow Miami to steal a game.
Well, unfortunately, we see that exactly the same way. I'm taking the Sixers in 7. I think this whole first round of the playoffs has some really interesting matchups. This is one of them. You know, when I look at Miami, I see Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, and Dwayne Wade. You know, there's a certain mental and emotional toughness to that franchise.
Absolutely.
Where I don't think they're rolling over for anyone. I think there's a lot of...
Oh, there it goes. Yep. They did split the regular season series. Very close games, too. All the stats are very close.
A lot of fight in them, and they have some talent on the roster. And they've been playing together for a while now, other than Dwayne Wade, who just got back. So they got something there. Also, Ben Simmons doesn't shoot it well. It's the only thing he doesn't do well. So I suspect that, and by the way, not shooting well includes from the stripe. So I suspect that's exactly where they're going to put Ben Simmons. And that.
Yes, he's going to have to prove to them in the first two games that he can make his free throws. I'm sure that he's going to attempt at least 30 to 35 free throws in the first two games. If he's able to make 25 of those free throws, they'll stop that Hacker Simmons bullshit very soon. And that will go a long way in establishing exactly how good and how far the 76ers can be and can go.
And that could be a problem. Nevertheless, I think more than the shooting or anything, Stephen A., the difference in this series is one team, the Sixers, have two transcendent talents. You have a guy in Ben Simmons.
And that's what the NBA playoffs are about, Max Kellerman. That's why it's so surprising that you're so hard on the Toronto Raptors bandwagon, because they don't have any transcendent players on their team. The nearest player that they have to being transcendent is DeMar DeRozan, and once again, he is mentally fragile by his own admission. No disrespect to the brother at all. It's just reality.
Who is likely to be the best guard or non-big, even though he's 6'10", supposedly, I don't think he actually is, in the league, and Joel Embiid, who is already right there among the very best bigs in the league. Two guys who are just different qualitatively in terms of talent than anyone else on either team, and they're both on the same team, and so the Sixers win in 7. Tough.
Pretty much, if you want to figure out who's going to win a series, all you have to do is look at the team that has two of the top 3 best players. When you combine the rosters for both teams and you start trying to discern and decipher which team has the best players and you rank them, whichever team has 2 of the top 3 or 3 of the top 5 best players normally wins the series unless somebody gets injured. That's why I picked Portland over New Orleans. Now, once again, when you have a transcendent player can sometimes nullify that. But when I say transcendent, we're talking about at the level of a generational talent, like a Michael Jordan, a LeBron James, a Larry Bird, a Kobe Bryant, Magic, Tim Duncan, players like that, Shaq. And even amongst that crop, there is a discernment between exactly who can raise their level of play to the point where they can cause their team to beat a team that's obviously better than theirs. Because Kobe failed to do it in 2006 when he helped the LA Lakers take a 3-1 lead on the Phoenix Suns and, of course, allowed them to come back. And he gave up on his team. So, I mean, things happen.
Series.
Game 1 Saturday at 8 on ESPN. 76ers 16-game win streak, by the way, the longest ever by entering the playoffs there. We stay on the east side, gentlemen. The Celtics don't have Kyrie. The Bucks have their star, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Everyone's writing Boston off here, Max. Are you going with everyone, or are you going to be the renegade and take the seeds?
I have Milwaukee in 6 in this series. But if Boston were to win in 7, it wouldn't shock me at all. I don't think that Milwaukee has their team identity quite down yet. I think that they have to get rid of a couple of their players, like Jabari Parker. I think that he has to go. They have to improve their backcourt play. Eric Bledsoe is not a starting point guard on a championship level team. On a championship level team, he's actually the backup point guard. So they have to figure out what they want to do with their lineup, with their roster, I should say.
Renegade.
Yeah.
The Boston Celtics will win this. Also a very tough series in 7 games. And by the
Yes, it wouldn't shock me if they win it in 7, but I'm going to pick Milwaukee in 6.
By the way, I'm tempted to take them in under 7 games, but Antetokounmpo is so much better than everybody else in this series. By the way, even if Kyrie were there, he'd be the best player in the series.
I don't know about that, sir. If Kyrie was there, I think that it would be a push. And I would certainly give Boston the edge if Kyrie were there. Right now, it's very, very even for me. It's hard for me to really distinguish which team I think is really going to win this series. I will pick Milwaukee in 6 just because they have the best player in the series. But one can certainly make the case that after Giannis, Boston may have the 3 or 4 best players after him. I mean, exactly where would Eric Bledsoe fit? I think that Jabari Parker is going to have to play a major role in this series. But right now, I'm going to stick to my guns and say Milwaukee in 6 or Boston in 7.
It's just too long. But without Kyrie, it's not close. So that team that has him has an enormous advantage. It is not outweighed, however, by the coaching advantage enjoyed by the Celtics. And you see how hard this team fights, even without Kyrie. Obviously, without Gordon Hayward all years, but even in games where Al Horford's not there and Marcus Smart's not there, etc., etc.
The only issue that I have with that, and I've mentioned this before in some of the videos that I've done on the Boston Celtics, a lot of times that regular season grit, it doesn't really carry over into the playoffs, especially when you've lost your best player. Because these other teams find levels to raise their game to, and when you spent the entire season playing with that level of grit and trying to grind out victories, you don't have another level to go to. And it's a major difference in the playoffs. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are going to have to each average 20 a game for them to win this series. Once again, I'm very, very torn in regards to who I believe is going to win this series. I could see Milwaukee in 6 or Boston in 7. But yes, Boston clearly has the edge in coaching.
They're going down to the wire with other Eastern Conference and even Western Conference powerhouses and sometimes winning those games. They're just exceptionally well coached, exceptionally mentally tough, and they still have talent on that squad. I'm going with them in 7 over the Bucks.
I agree with you there. You know what? But I'm taking Boston in 6. I don't like Milwaukee's inability to score from the perimeter when it really, really counts.
It's because they have an issue with their backcourt, Stephen A. They have to upgrade their backcourt. Eric Bledsoe's a nice player, but he's not a starter on a championship level team. He's a backup. Now, interestingly enough, the Cleveland Cavaliers were trying to swing a trade for him in the offseason, which would have fit him well because he's better as that off/point guard. The guard who can shoot and can score, and if called upon, can run the point. But as your main distributor, no. You don't want Eric Bledsoe as that guy. But had he been able to team up with Paul George and LeBron, they would have had a very potent mixture. And then also you're going to have Kevin Love there. They would have been championship caliber. They would have given Golden State a run. But in Milwaukee, no, because Giannis does not have the playmaking skills to relegate Bledsoe into the role that he needs to be in, which is as a very potent weapon who can distribute if you need him to, but you don't want him doing that as his main focus. So they just have a very, very bad mixture. I would package him and Jabari Parker in a deal and try to get a top-shelf backcourt guy. I mean, hell, maybe they can try to trade Bledsoe and Jabari Parker to Phoenix for Devin Booker and see if Phoenix will hearken.
The Greek Freak is something to behold, but remember, one of the things Boston has is some length as well. Not that Al Horford can guard him on the perimeter, but the combination of Horford, Jaylen Brown to a lesser degree, Jason Tatum to a higher degree. You have some length on Boston where they could do some things. I think they're exceptionally well coached, but more importantly, I think they're better perimeter shooters, and I think ultimately that will rule the day.
It should rule the day if Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum don't get stage fright. Once again, there's a lot of factors going into this series. Jason Tatum is a rookie. Jaylen Brown, it's his first year as a real prominent player. If they step up, they'll win. I think that Boston is the better team, but I just think that Milwaukee has the better player. And when you add in all these other factors, I would have Milwaukee in 6 or Boston in 7. There's really no result that would shock me. It would be a shock if either team swept, but you're splitting hairs with this one.
I'm going to pick them to beat Milwaukee in 6.
How about it? The Celtics are resilient. They led the NBA in fourth quarter comebacks, and that game is Sunday at 1. Guys, we'll be chopping it up about the NBA Finals a lot on First Take weekdays, 10 a.m. Check us out. But right now, I want to quickly get your 2 teams, your finals picks, and who's going to win it all. Stephen A.
Well, let me answer before they do. I have the Golden State Warriors meeting the Cleveland Cavaliers for the 4th straight season and winning in 5 games.
I got the Warriors meeting the Cavs. It's a rematch. LeBron James is coming out of the East. That's just the way that I see it. Unless if he gets knocked up by Toronto, it would be Philly. But I don't think that's going to happen. It'll be LeBron meeting Philly in the conference finals. They will win. Ultimately, he will run into the Warriors, who's a juggernaut. They'll have a 7-game series against Houston, but Steph Curry will be back. Golden State will win that series in 7. They will meet the Cavs, and they will take LeBron and the Cavs out in 5.
Totally agree. Even though I'm not sure if it's going to take 7 games for the Golden State Warriors to beat the Houston Rockets. Because as I'm making this video, I just finished watching some of the Golden State Warriors versus San Antonio Spurs game. And if they play that level of defense throughout the playoffs, they shouldn't have much trouble with the Houston Rockets. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't want to underestimate the Rockets right now. I haven't seen how they look in the playoffs yet. I certainly want to see how the Rockets look in the second round, especially if they have to play a team like the Thunder.
Finals will feature neither the Cavs nor the Warriors. The Rockets over Toronto in 5 games.
In one of the lowest rated finals in the last 10 years. Believe me, the NBA is not going to allow the Toronto Raptors to get to the finals. They don't have enough star power, Max Kellerman.
I got to admit, if that happens, Toronto and Houston.
Oh, I know you're going to be happy. Those 2 cities are stripper capitals of the world, Stephen A. Smith. I know you're going to be happy.
That's not a bad thing for me, Max Kellerman. I'm talking about socially.
Oh,
socially. It's a lot to do. It's a lot to do in those towns, Max Kellerman. Those are beautiful towns to be in for the finals, I must admit.
But Stephen A., can you actually see
Sean,
that
listen,
happening? Come on.
No, not for me. I can't see it. I can't see that happening.
Max, why are you going with those teams?
Well, there's a reason that, because
because the advanced stats tell him that he should go with those teams. The same reason why he goes with every one of his opinions, quote unquote. Because all he basically is a human printer. He lets the computer do all the work and then he just spits it out.
There's a reason that's the number 1 seed in the East and the number 1 seed in the West. The Raptors, really, it's mainly because there's no one else there who I'm scared of if I'm a Raptors fan once Kyrie went down for Boston. But the Houston Rockets, as I always point out, have practically not lost when healthy. And here they're healthy, and Steph still hasn't played for the Warriors. But even if Steph was fully healthy, at no point were the Warriors as good as the Rockets have been when fully loaded this season, and the Rockets are fully loaded.
Well, we'll see, sir. We'll see. I just hope you don't have a bunch of silly excuses if and when your prediction does not come to fruition.
Hot take right there. How about it, Max? Love that you guys don't disagree. And Stephen A. going for the 4P. All right, guys, we got the...
But anyway, that's it on part 2. We're going to move on to part 3. Peace.